number 6 LSU travels to number 11 Ole Miss, and when we saw this game happen over the course of the preseason, when we saw this game scheduled, we figured that this was going to be a big time matchup where we do see it playing some kind of role in the overall SEC picture as well as the national like playoff picture as well. But I think we are watching one of the more consequential Magnolia Bowl battles that we have seen in some time, as LSU and Ole Miss, they're both undefeated, and Von Hemingway Stadium, doesn't get a lot of credit for this, but it is a very intimidating environment to go in and try to win as well. Now, LSU is coming off of its strongest offensive performance of the season thus far. They did score more than 30 points for the first time this year when they had a 56-10 win over Southeastern Louisiana of the FCS ranks, with Garrett Nussmeier having his most efficient day, 273 yards, 3 touchdowns, 25 for 31 in terms of his efficiency. And then the running game, Caden Durham had his best performance yet, also running for over 200 yards and a couple of touchdowns to help carry some of that load on the ground. But an offense that I'm continually excited to watch is this Ole Miss offense, man. We saw Trinidad Chambliss get his second start, and the Ferris State transfer, dude, that is a star. That is a star in the making. In just 2 full games that he's played thus far, over 700 passing yards, 4 passing touchdowns as well. He has not thrown a single interception yet. He's got a really good backfield mate as well, and Kalen Lacey piling up touchdowns, and a really dynamic threat in Harrison Wallace III, really emerging as that top target for the Ole Miss Rebels as well. So I do think there is like 3 pivotal factors in terms of how things are gonna match up. I think this is going to be a really fun matchup, particularly for the Ole Miss offense going up against the LSU defense. Really taking a look at, in terms of pivotal factors to watch, really got to check in. Obviously, time possession is going to be really important. Whoever wins the time of possession is going to have an initial edge. So that's something to definitely keep an eye on, particularly for a game like this where both teams are equally matched. LSU, how does LSU stack up in a third down situation, right? LSU, we talked about how good their defense has been all year long, and they haven't allowed, I believe, more than 10 points this entire year. And the big reason for that is that third down efficiency on the defensive side of the ball. They're currently ranked in the top 15 in the country when it comes to getting third down stops. Red zone offense. I think red zone offense is pretty important as well. We know Ole Miss can put up points in a hurry, but LSU has had some issues offensively outside of the FCS matchup. They haven't scored more than, they haven't gotten to that 30-point mark, as I mentioned earlier, outside of that Southeastern Louisiana game. Matter of fact, their total offensive output, their best game before that was 26 points that they scored against Louisiana Tech. Listen, I think Louisiana Tech is a really sleeper pick to win the Conference USA. I think that's a good quality G5 program, but at the same time, though, when you're LSU and you have significantly more talent against Louisiana Tech, that is a little bit of a cause of concern, considering that's your best FBS performance to date thus far. But to be fair to LSU, I will say this: LSU has done a very good job of scoring in the end zone. Once they gotten into the red zone, they haven't gotten in there very much, but when they have gotten into the red zone, they have converted that into touchdowns more than 80% of the time. So I think that's something to certainly monitor. If you're LSU, you got to finish drives against Ole Miss, because we know that Ole Miss is capable of putting points up on the board. And matter of fact, I think this is going to be the best offense that LSU is going to encounter. We thought that was going to be Clemson in week number 1, but we have seen that Clemson has really disappointed. And then, of course, Louisiana Tech is another thing. Plus, there was Florida. Florida's had some offensive issues as well, which I'm not going to get into too much. So let's go ahead and pull up the model real quick. So this is what FanDuel is currently showing in comparison to what our internal power rating metric is currently showing as of right now. So this is what we got going on. So Ole Miss on FanDuel is a very short favorite, 1.5 point favorite, which according to FanDuel, LSU is a slightly better team than Ole Miss, but because Ole Miss is at home, that's why they have the edge. But FanDuel believes LSU is the better team. But my model and what my eyes have seen, I think, tell a different story. I think Ole Miss is actually that more talented team that maybe is a little bit undervalued. So we have Ole Miss as an 8.5 point favorite going into this one. We think either way, it is going to be a close game. I would be surprised if it ends up being the type of game that ends up being a non-competitive game in either direction. That being said, I look at Ole Miss, having that actual offensive explosion over the course of the year. There's a defense that's showing signs of improvement, allowing Tulane, a very good G5 team, to just 10 points as well. That is still a Tulane team that could very well have a very consequential say of who represents the G5 in terms of college football playoff. So to hold Tulane to just 10 points, a team that does have multiple power conference wins on the resume, holding them to 10 points, I think shows the defense is certainly improving. Plus, matter of fact, this game is happening at home in an underrated home environment at Vaught-Hemingway Stadium down in Oxford, Mississippi. I really like Ole Miss chances in outlasting an LSU team that, and frankly, it's an LSU team that still needs to prove that the offense can move the ball consistently against non-FCS competition. I don't think that's something that does change overnight. So I do think LSU does get their highest offensive output of the year just because they're going to need it, given how good Ole Miss is on the offensive side of the ball. However, I don't think that LSU is necessarily going to be able to fully keep up with the backfield duo of Trinidad Chambliss as well as Kalen Lacey as well. So not only am I going with Ole Miss winning this game outright, but I'm actually going to lean slightly towards Ole Miss covering as well. Coming out of their battle against the LSU Tigers, still remaining undefeated, as I think Ole Miss does come out on top, winning 31-28, and should be a very fascinating game. To get things started is almost an undercard special, because that's going to really help set the stage for really what's to come in terms of the overall SEC title picture.